Hi there and welcome. You are listening to The Hoof of the Horse, a podcast dedicated to farriery and equine science with Dr. Simon Curtis.
I'm sitting here in the beautiful island state of Malta, which it lies south of Sicily and north of the African coastline. So in a beautiful part of the Mediterranean, Malta is surrounded by the bluest of seas, and it also has the mildest climate of in the whole of Europe. I've been lucky enough to meet up with Martin Darmanin, and he shoes here in Malta, and I've met him before, and he's going to tell me something about his life as a farrier here on the island. So, Martin, can you just tell us something about Malta?
Well, as you said, Malta's in the middle of the Mediterranean. We have been ruled under the St. John's Knights of Malta, and then for almost 100 years we were under the British rule. We got our independence 1964, 21st September, and ever since we have been a democratic country. We are part of the EU as well. We have our own language, which is Maltese, and we speak also English, which is our second language. The population is 480,000 people. It's a little bit overpopulated, dense, but we'll get along quite well.
And just tell me, how big is the main island of Malta?
Well, it's for British miles, it's just 17 by 13. It's very small.
17 miles by 13?
Yes.
And in kilometres?
Well, that's very odd. It will be 25, 26, yes, by 18.
Okay.
By 18. There are also smaller islands, mainly Gozo, which is even smaller, and there is Comino, where only the population is only of 2 people who lives there, and there are smaller ones, but nobody lives on these smaller islands.
So it's an archipelago here.
Yes.
And of course you've said about the history, but of course the history is quite remarkable. There's I know there's the oldest temples in the world here.
Yes. We have several. There is Gigantia, which is in Gozo, which is our sister island, and there is Hajar Im, which is on the mainland in Malta. They are considered to be the oldest buildings around, at least in Europe.
So, can you tell me about farriery in your family? Are you the first in your family to shoe horses?
No. I'm the 3rd generation. My grandfather, Joseph, kicked off the business. He used to work with the British when they were here in Malta. Then my father followed, and now I'm running the farriery business.
So tell me, was it a good relationship with the British? If that's a leading question.
Yes, I'm very, to be honest, I'm very pro-British. Why? Because my family always earned their living while the British were here, while the British services were stationed here in Malta. My uncles used to play polo. Even Prince Charles used to come here in Malta and play with our ponies. One of the best trotting drivers here in Malta is my uncle, Raymond. So the British connection, because of horses, it's very concrete. It's very concrete.
Okay, and so your grandfather was the first to shoe.
Yes.
But I think also your grandfather developed a livery stables, which was quite big at one point in the 60s, and I believe.
You can say that again, yes. My grandfather kick-started the farriery business, but together with his cousin Victor, they started the Darmanin riding establishment. At one go, I'm talking about 1960s and 70s. At the riding establishment, we used to have between 60 to 70 horses. Ponies, polo horses, horses at liveries, thoroughbreds, trotters, you mentioned it, we had it.
And the family obviously used to shoe their own horses. And
Yes, as I told you, my grandfather was the farrier there, then my father continued, then it was part of my duties to keep on the business up and going.
so when did you actually start shoeing, Martin?
As soon as I left school, that is 1976.
Okay.
I was only 15, 16-year-old, and my mother used to tell us, learn school, you have to be educated. So I got 9 O levels from school, but when I went down to the stables, my father told me, you want to earn money? I said, yes. He told me, put your sleeves up. These are your tools, and we started farriery training from there.
And but you did gain some education by travelling, didn't you?
Yes. Unfortunately, in Malta, we don't have any farriery formal training. Any Tom, Dick and Harry can buy the tools and start shoeing horses. I wanted something more than that. So what after I put my hands on farriery, I wanted to get a formal certificate. So I studied, and I got graduated at the Telford Rural Polytechnic in New Zealand.
So how long did you spend in New Zealand?
Well, for my graduation and practice, it was only 6 weeks, but the whole course took me 13 months.
So New Zealand, you went there for a short course, but what were your impressions of New Zealand as a country and as the place that you went and visited?
Well, the whole course took 13 months, and then I had to visit the Polytechnic. To be honest, I was impressed with their facilities. They are very professional, and whatever they do it for a goal. That is, if they have horses and they are competing, they try to win. They have sheep. They clip them and they have to sell the wood. The college is almost self-sufficient. I was really impressed by that.
Is there a variety of horses in Malta? I know we're quite close to the racetrack here, and you spoke about the livery. What sort of horses do you have here in Malta?
Well, most of the horses, and when I say most, I will say 80 to 82%, they are trotters. Swedish trotters, French trotters. There are very few thoroughbreds, and there are quite a lot of ponies. Here there are racing traditions that most of the villages organize road races, and most of the competitors would be these locally bred ponies. They go as you please. I mean, it's not trotting, it's gallop in the sulky.
How on earth do they find a road in this country that doesn't have a car on it? It's the busiest traffic I think I've ever seen.
Yes, when they organize races like this, it's a big event, so the roads are closed. It's people lining on both sides of the road, and the races go in between.
Sounds like great fun.
It is. It's a thrill. Let me put it, it's a thrill. You have to experience it.
So we went past the police horse, where the police horse stables, which is in your village, and I know you don't shoe the police horses, but you mentioned earlier that you have a couple of heavy horses that you look after.
Yes. Yes. Not unfortunately, I would say unfortunately, because I like big Shire horses. Unfortunately, we don't have much of them here in Malta. One of the main reasons is the climate. We have 8-9 months of the year here which are very, very hot, and they're seeing this breed don't settle in well with our weather condition. But yes, I have a couple of clients who have these heavy horses. It's breaking to shoot them because especially when you find one that leans. But through experience, what I have found is when you shoot heavy horses, you have to shoot them diagonally. You start the front one, let's say a left one, then you go for a hind right. You give the horse more time to settle and relax.
Well, I think that's a good tip for everybody shoeing a horse that's not easy. Now, EFA, which is the European Federation of Farriers Association, has been going quite a long time now. I was a founder member, so I'm really more than delighted that it's still serving its purpose and still in some ways growing. You represent Malta in EFA, so tell our listeners something about EFA.
I wasn't really happy with the farrier condition here in Malta. I always wanted to do something else. That's why I went abroad to study and got my graduation. And then I wanted something more. In Europe, as you said, there is the EFA, the Farriers Federation. I wanted Malta to become part of it. I have been involved since 2012. That is a good 6 years now, on a basis of individual representative. Why am I doing this? Because for some years I have been trying to convince the local authorities to implement some farrier regulations in Malta. With the help of EFA, and when I have some problem, I always try to communicate with EFA to get their support. I'm trying to sort of give some enforcement to my working, to convince the local authority about this. Because we are one of the very few countries in Malta that we don't have any farrier regulations. A few years ago, I used to say farrier in Malta, it's a dying trade. Now, this year, 2018, almost gone, I would say it's almost dead. I mean, it's almost kaput, our trade. We are only very few, even though there are a lot of horses here in Malta. We are in the situation now here in Malta that there is only about 6 of us local farriers, and we are getting farriers from abroad. Fortunately, they are not filtered, they are not vetted to see what standard they have. But unfortunately, because there isn't any Maltese local farriers, we have to opt for this option.
Well, that's obviously something that I know you would like to address, but you're also starting to run courses. I know you've helped with the local farriers to stimulate knowledge by doing some lectures, but you're also recently designing a course, I think, to bring some foreign students in.
Yes, Simon. Since 2009, I started an evening so-called farrier course. It's for the general public. I mean, grooms, trainers, jockeys. You mention it, they attend. Even from the mounted police, I had quite a large group from the mounted police. Why? Because I'm trying to spread the basics of farriery. Not just putting the shoe on against the hoof, hammer it and it's done. No, to balance the hoof, you see how much you cut from the hoof, which shoes do you use, road nails, road stud, and I go even a little bit further than that. I go with the how farrier developed. I give the whole history of farrier. So those interested, maybe I can stimulate something in the local equestrian enthusiast to start. Oh yes, this is a nice trade. I would like to train. So I will try. I'm trying to spread as much knowledge about farrier as much as possible.
And I saw a nice picture of you lecturing to animal welfare officers. So obviously you're trying to get them to understand that foot care is to do with welfare.
Yes. Some time ago, yes, I started doing lectures and seminars for the animal welfare officers. Why? Because these are the first people who are to encounter mistreated horses. So they should know the basic of the hoof. I mean, long, short, not short properly. So I give them all the general knowledge. Besides that, as you mentioned before, the course I have prepared is being also sold, let's put it that way, abroad. And with this coming few weeks, we have some students from the Netherlands, between 20 and 25 students who are attending for a 15 days course here in Malta.
That's marvellous, and I'm sure in January they'll be delighted to travel from the Netherlands down to the warmest part of Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, if we move on a little bit, I was wondering that you have a small number of farriers and obviously a restricted number of horses, and I was thinking about the economics of getting tools, but we actually drove past farrier supplies. So, but can you tell us something about buying tools and horseshoes here in Malta?
Okay, Simon, my grandfather and father were finer farriers than myself. Why? Because they used to make their own tools. They didn't find any, no nippers, no shoe puller. They used to make everything. Fortunately for me, now we are finding them ready-made off the shelf. In Malta, there is only one very good distributor of good quality tools. Not the range is not of a great amount, but the basics are there. Nowadays, buying tools, it seems to be not that much problem, Simon, because I mean, through internet, you Google something, you get it within a few days. So for me, it's not that much problem.
So you buy much of your equipment and horseshoes online?
Yes, we do as well. Locally, you'll find almost everything. As I told you, there is quite a good shop down next to the racing track. But any others, you can get them through the net.
Good. Now, you did explain that that Malta has its own unique language of Maltese, and English is the second language. But Maltese, of course, in some ways is a cross between Latin and Arabic, isn't it?
Yes.
And I've been trying to learn a few words. Not that I'm going to, shall we say, injure your ears by trying any out. But I would quite like for you to say to me in Maltese, Martin, Madam, I cannot shoe your horse unless you hold it still.
Signora, ma nistannellek iż-żiemel jekk ma żżommu lis-sew.
So that was a good example of a combination, because even I recognise Signora as the Italian. Very well done. That's great. Thank you, Martin. All right. Now this is the deep philosophical question of the interview. And so what I'd like to know is, what is the most important thing that you've learned in your life?
Ouch. That's a hard one. Okay. The most important thing, and my father used to tell me this as well, never give up. Never give up. Always keep on trying. As during our talk, I have told you that I have been for quite some years now trying to get the local authorities to fix this farriery regulations. Sometimes even my family, and I don't blame them, say, give up, let it be. But then I remember in that, never give up. And that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to give up until we have some good farriery regulations in Malta.
I think that's excellent advice. I think all farriers need to have a little bit of grit, don't they? We have to face horses we don't want to shoe. We have to do jobs sometimes we don't want to.
You can say that again. It's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're a great example of that.
Oh, thank you. Sometimes, Simon, it's not only the horse, not only because of the horse, the owners. Not the horse, the owner.
Yeah, well, we say that all around the world.
Yeah,
the horses are easy.
Yeah, but the owners are sometimes much more difficult.
Okay.
But it seems that it's not my problem. It's spread all over the world, is it?
It's spread all over the world, and I'm sure by your stage in your career, you've managed to filter out, shall we say, the more difficult ones. I hope so.
Yes.
Most of them.
I do agree.
That's good. Okay, on a slightly lighter note, what do you do? How do you spend your leisure time?
My only remaining hobby, to be honest, because everywhere I go, I want to see horses. If we go out, I want to ride a horse. If I go to a museum, I try to find a farrier museum. So my only hobby remaining is going abroad. I love to travel. I know I'm restricted because of the workload. I'm restricted how time I spend abroad. But that's only my real hobby, going abroad, visiting our countries. I have been from New Zealand through across Europe to Mexico, USA. You mentioned it. I have been.
Well, you're widely travelled. Martin, I'd like to really thank you for taking part in this interview. We didn't know each other till 7 months ago, and you've been a great host to me on my trips here to Malta. And as you know, I will be coming back. But it's lovely to talk to you. You've given us an insight into farriery here in Malta, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You can follow more of Simon's work on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. To get in contact, email thehoofofthehorse@gmail.com, or if you're interested in Simon's books, please go to curtisfarrierbooks.com. Thanks for listening.